Here's just a random update video on my 2000 Mercedes CLK320 Cabriolet. I've owned this for, I guess, about 2 months now, maybe a little bit longer. I haven't driven it a whole lot, but I have put about 1,600 miles on it. And you know, in general, the Mercedes Benzes from this era get a bad rap, but they're actually really good cars. The powertrain in this car is actually pretty bulletproof, and I've had a few Benzes from this era, and I've had really good luck with them. When I first bought this convertible, I bought it really cheap. I paid $62.50 for it with 62,000 miles on it. I bought it from the original owner. When I bought it, it needed a few things. It had some random error lights, like check engine, ABS, ESP, BAS. All of those would periodically light up, and those issues were and I would also have loss of power while driving. Not exactly limp mode, it just wouldn't go. So it was a combination of two things, very simple and inexpensive. I had a throttle position sensor, which was actually really easy to replace. It's under the hood on this car, and very common brake light switch issue. Replaced those two, and then also when I first got it, the top had to be helped up, or I should say helped down, and you had to catch it when it was closing. That turned out to be there's two cables that run along the inside of the top that kind of hold it in position and help the motors to pull it back. So I was able to replace those courtesy of some YouTube videos, and it only took me about an hour. That was like about $160. I changed the brake fluid. I do that as just a matter of course. It wasn't too bad. It looked like it had been done within the past 3 to 5 years, but it was still due. The maintenance says it's due in 6,800 miles. I expect that to expire in time, before miles, because he told me he did it the last oil change a couple years ago. I looked at the oil. It's a little dark, but nothing to be alarmed at. I tried to also look in the oil cap and see if I saw anything amiss, and it looks fine. Coolant looks fine, at least for now. So I really haven't done a whole lot of maintenance to it yet. It just passed West Virginia inspection this month. Oh yeah, I had to do I had to replace a fog light, and it was actually pretty easy. Some of the stuff on YouTube showed you had to remove some panels and whatever, but you really don't. I just kind of bent it back and was able to reach up there and get it. Yeah, so the West Virginia inspection, they check out things like the suspension, all the lights, steering, brakes, horn, all that. So that all was good. I mean, this car was maintained as a long-term owner who bought it new would typically do. I think he was just getting ready to get rid of it, so he didn't keep up on everything. It's got a couple quirks, like the driver's window. Sometimes you have to open the door for it to go up without catching. Just little things like that. But other than that, after I got the initial things fixed, I mean, it's been 100% reliable. Oh yeah, I also replaced, as a preventative measure, the transmission connector switch. It was a little difficult on this car because of the way the exhaust routes around. So I actually had to get a really long extension to get it in there. Let's do an acceleration. This is uphill. But it runs great. The AC works perfectly fine. The cruise works perfectly fine. It's got a few flaws on the interior, like little rips and tears here and there. Nothing too major. But yeah, it's really a joy to drive, and I believe this is based off of the C-Class chassis. But it drives like a Benz. I mean, it's got a nice solid feel, and for a convertible, it's pretty quiet, pretty decent sound insulation. Sometimes when I'm going on a bumpy road, this part of the convertible makes some noises, but I just consider that all characteristics of the car. And it may have really actually started doing that after I replaced those cables, because you have to take this top part off and you have to take that handle out to be able to get to that. But I actually really don't expect many problems with this car. I'm going to probably hold on to it for a while. It's pretty fun to have a convertible. The convertible top works flawlessly. About 3 years ago, the guy that I bought the car from took it to the dealer because the top wasn't working, and he paid $3,000 to get the a new computer, and they replaced one of the hydraulic cylinders. I think it was what did they call it? The boot one. I can't remember. There was a term for it. This one is different than my previous CLK in that it's really hard to get to the reservoir to check the fluid level. The other one, you could just look in the trunk and pull back a panel, but this one, it's quite labor intensive. But I don't smell any telltale signs of the oil. There's nothing abnormal about the top operation, so I'm just gonna assume everything's fine, and that when the dealer had it back then, that they probably checked everything as well. And yeah, so I expect this to be a very good car. I would recommend one of these to anybody. Of course, you know, there's things you have to check out. If you get one and the transmission is leaking from that connector, I would really be cautious about buying that car, because chances are if it's leaking on the outside, it's also going to be leaking on the inside. And what that does is it causes the conductor plate to fry. I mean, that in of itself isn't a huge job. I mean, it's something that somebody with reasonable DIY skills and I believe a computer to reprogram it to the car could handle. I've never gotten that far into one, but it's just basically a few more steps beyond like a regular transmission fluid change. Whenever I replaced the what do you call it, the connector, I lost about a quart of fluid. I measured whatever came out and put that back in. I didn't even bother to check it, even though I have the custom dipstick that you can use. These didn't come with a dipstick, but they do have a place to put a dipstick. You have to buy that aftermarket. So it got a new quart of fluid. I don't know if it was ever changed. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it probably was changed. Because it seems like the guy that had this car before just did whatever the dealer said it needed. So I'm going to guess that probably about $40K it was changed. So now it has a new quart in the mix. I don't know how many quarts it takes. But, and you know, the other interesting thing is these seats are actually very comfortable, even though they're rather firm. They're actually quite firm, but the shape of the seat is very nice for me and my primary passenger. And we're actually very sensitive to seats, but let's see if I can show you, like, pushing on that, you know, it's just really a firm seat. But I've driven this maybe a couple hours at a time. Haven't had it on any really super long road trips, but I say that it would probably be perfectly fine for a longer road trip. And that it would be comfortable. You know, of course, your mileage may vary on that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to many more happy miles with this car. If there is one minor complaint I have, that wood trim piece up there along the top, I'm gonna go ahead and floor it here. A little quick acceleration. Sometimes it catches the sun and I get some glare from that. Sometimes it glares on the windshield. You may be able to see that in the video because it's kind of doing that now. I mean, it's not horrible. I can live with it because it really depends on the time of day and the angle of the sun. You know, it's a very small percentage of the time. And you know, oddly enough, this one right here, I would have guessed I would have some glare off of that, but I never have. So that one's been pretty good. Let's see if there's any other comments. You know, it does have a little bit of cowl shake, but not bad. I mean, it does seem very well put together with proper bracing. You're able to take turns in a pretty sporty fashion, and it holds the road very well. I believe this one has a little bit more cowl shake than my CLK500 did. But when the top is up, it's very minimal. It seems like there's some decent bracing in the top that holds everything all together, but when the top is down, you do notice it a little bit. Yeah, you can probably hear some of the random noises that this car makes as I'm going over bumps. I'm out on some of my favorite country roads driving around. So yeah, that's just a bunch of my random thoughts on this car. I'd say probably I'm gonna just keep my eye on that when it tells me that the time is up for the oil change. I might do it. I might even do it earlier. Oh yeah, there is one other thing. It does have a bit of an oil leak. I'm not 100% convinced it's the rear main like I had in my CLK500. I think these particularly low miles are susceptible to that. I tend to think it's more likely from the valve cover gaskets, which I have. I just haven't gotten around to replacing them yet. It's not a significant oil leak, but it's something I'm keeping my eyes on. I don't know if there's any sensors on the side of the engine. It may also be something like that. I don't know where the oil level sensor is on this car. I have to get under there and look around a bit more and figure that out. So something I'll eventually get to. It's not really a critical issue as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. But as far as oil use is concerned, it really doesn't use any oil. At least I think I checked the oil after I drove it for 1,000 miles, and it hasn't really budged I probably ought to check it again soon and just make sure that's the case. It's always a good idea to check your oil on these old cars pretty frequently. I park it sort of half in the grass, half in my driveway, so if it was leaking some oil, I probably wouldn't really see it anyway. I park it off to the side so I can get my other cars in and out. Alright, hey, this is a rare treat. We got a Beetle coming the other way. I'd like to ask them if that's for sale. But that reminds me, I want to look and see if there's any car shows today to go to. That would be my goal today, is to find a car show to go to. Alright, I've rambled on for quite some time now. Hopefully somebody finds it entertaining. And y'all have a good day.